Greetings and salutations. Today we'll be covering one of the Midwest's unsolved mysteries, a chilling enigma that haunts the heartland of America. We'll be delving into the perplexing case of a young man named Chris Jenkins, and the tale that would become the prologue in a series of inexplicable disappearances in the Midwest. Initial reports show that 21-year-old Chris Jenkins, a bright and popular business student from the University of Minnesota who was known for his academic prowess, along with a vibrant sense of humor, would, on the fateful night of October 31st, 2002, embark on a Halloween adventure, dressed as a Native American. He ventured out with his girlfriend and another couple to the Lone Tree Bar and Grill in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and it was noted that the night seemed to hold promise. But as the clock neared midnight, something unfortunate took place. In a baffling turn of events, Chris would be forcefully ejected from the bar, leaving behind his phone, wallet, and jacket. As he stepped out into the chilling night, then it would be on Hennepin Avenue, just after taking a left, that the young man's trail would become cold. Chris Jenkins had vanished into the abyss of the unknown. However, the strangeness did not end there. Chris had become the harbinger for a string of disappearances that would grip the upper Midwest in fear. A mere 6 days later, on November 6th, a student met a similar fate. Michael Null, a 22-year-old University of Wisconsin student, vanished after celebrating his birthday in a bar in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. 3 days hence, on November 9th, the mystery deepened even further still. 20-year-old Josh Guimond disappeared into thin air after leaving behind a small gathering in an apartment in Collegeville, Minnesota. The connections became eerily apparent. All three young men had vanished within a 100-mile radius of Minneapolis, and they shared a commonality in age, height, and weight. Most strikingly is that each had been said to have been imbibing spirits when last seen, and were last seen in close proximity to bodies of water. 4 months after Chris's disappearance, his lifeless body would surface in the depths of the Mississippi River. Initially, it was suspected that the case was that of an accidental drowning by the police. However, his case would take a sinister turn when later authorities would reclassify the case as a homicide, leaving a question hanging. What malevolent force had claimed the life of this young man, and had this same force claimed the lives of the others? As we delve deeper, we find that as time went on, some of the details in the case would shift. It seems that on the fateful Halloween's Eve, 21-year-old Chris Jenkins had embarked on an evening of revelry with his girlfriend, Ashley Rice, along with 3 close friends, as they ventured to the Lone Tree Bar and Grill. Here, the night would take a sinister turn. Sometime after the midnight hour, Chris found himself separated from his companions and being forcefully removed, or at least some sources claim. The circumstances leading to his expulsion involved a spilled drink that led, or is claimed to have led, to a misunderstanding where the security supervisor would state that he mistook Chris for a highly intoxicated individual who was being problematic earlier in the night, due to having urinated on himself. As fate would have it, Chris, still clad in his Native American Halloween attire, entrusted Ashley with his wallet, keys, and cell phone, due to his costume not having pockets, meaning he left the bar with no way to communicate with anyone. And he had left the bar without a coat in the frigid 20-degree night, with no means of contacting his friends inside the establishment and no ride home. Supposedly, Chris embarked on a solitary journey into the night. His last known direction was northward, away from the bar. However, he would never be found and would eventually be reported as missing. The unsettling trail grows colder as we fast forward to February 27th, 2003, when Chris's lifeless body was discovered beneath the 3rd Avenue Bridge, floating in the unforgiving embrace of the Mississippi River. Then, the initial investigation by the medical examiner revealed no overt signs of foul play, leading to an official cause of death being listed as undetermined. However, doubt would linger, particularly amongst his family, and it was due to them that anomalies were unveiled due to an independent investigation, which would lead to contradictory accounts emerging, particularly from the bar staff, who stated that Chris departed of his own volition, with one former employee asserting that there was no ejection that occurred that night. In a bizarre twist, the bar owner would quickly issue a gag order forbidding employees from speaking without legal counsel. As our narrative advances, we encounter chilling details, in particular, autopsy findings further complicating the case. Chris, it was determined, was not inebriated to the extent that he couldn't walk or speak coherently. However, there was the presence of GHB in his system, and witnesses' accounts from previous patrons to the bar and grill expressed GHB-related symptoms at the same bar, raising questions about the establishment. However, an even stranger twist would eventually come to light. GHB found in Chris's system was determined to potentially have been produced internally in a rather perplexing phenomena. This inexplicable puzzle would take on an even more sinister turn as we bridge the gap with another case, that of Dan Zellman, a college freshman from St. Thomas who vanished from a party in 2009. His mother vehemently attested that he had neither drank nor attended parties, yet the official narrative paints a different picture. And it seems that between Christopher and Dan's cases, the chilling pattern of young college-aged men mysteriously vanishing from college gatherings had been found near bodies of water at a rate high enough to be of note, causing the saga of Chris Jenkins to have a multitude of perplexing questions raised and leading to some rather curious circumstances around Mr. Jenkins. First, we cast our gaze upon an enigmatic figure, that of an off-duty police officer named Mike Casey, who was present at the Lone Tree Bar on that Halloween night. Casey, who had been working security for the adjacent Hennepin Center of the Arts, had intriguingly been introduced to Chris by Ashley. She had apparently borrowed his uniform shirt as part of her costume, which was that of a sexy police officer. Rumors would swell around Casey having potentially played a pivotal role in Chris's ejection from the bar, some going so far as to claim that he was connected to his disappearance and his eventual terrible fate. It must be noted that multiple people stated that he had exhibited flirtatious behavior towards Ashley throughout the night, and that he would be the one to provide her a ride home once the bar's doors had been shuttered. Astonishingly, Minneapolis PD had chosen not to formally question Casey, citing concerns for his family's stability. However, things become even more confusing as Chuck Losich, an investigator, decided to venture into what at the time was uncharted territory in the investigation, as he reached out to the Federal Reserve Bank, which held 2 exterior-facing cameras, both directed at the Hennepin Avenue Bridge, which would have been the shortest and most likely route that Chris would have to have taken to return home. Astonishingly, surveillance footage from the early morning hours of November 1st, when he would have had to have passed through this direction, yielded no trace of Chris. The narrative takes another strange twist, as when 2 bloodhounds were brought in to pursue the case and follow any trails of Chris from the Lone Tree Bar, they led the investigators straight to the Times Square Pizza and Subs across the street. Eventually, the dogs led investigators to an underground parking garage next door, and abruptly the trail would end right there, specifically in front of parking stalls 89 and 90. Curiously, one of the bar's bouncer was known to have parked in one of these spots on that ominous Halloween night, and the bloodhound would point to a potential positive scent identification on this individual's vehicle. However, that is not all. The garage concealed more secrets: droplets of blood residue, a piece of red string, and fragments of red feathers, which were potentially tied to Chris's costume's headband. To add further detail, upon further readings, it was found that Chris's blood alcohol content was 0.12%, indicating that he was definitely not heavily intoxicated, yet he had imbibed spirits. However, the traces of GHB caused a serious snag in the investigation. Eventually, Dr. Michael Baden raised a perplexing point. Chris's body was discovered with his arms neatly crossed in front of him, which contradicts the expected position of a drowning victim, who would be typically found face down with their arms splayed outwards and with disheveled clothing. However, notably, Chris's shirt was meticulously tucked into his pants and held by a drawstring, and his oversized slip-on moccasins still clung to his feet. This led to the speculation that Chris may have met an untimely fate long before his body was consigned to the river. Yet there was another confounding clue which emerged. Clenched in his left hand was a clump of hair. This revelation, though initially going unnoticed, would take paramount significance in the years to come, as DNA testing would later confirm that this was indeed Chris's own hair. Chris's family would raise another perplexing point: the absence of any bruising on his body. As a lacrosse goalie who constantly played, he and others were accustomed to seeing a series of bruises being sustained on his legs and forearms, and remarkably, he had played in 2 games and attended practice in the days preceding his disappearance. However, these bruises were all but lacking, fueling speculation that he may have been alive for a period after his vanishing, in which the bruises would be allowed time to heal. Hydrologists, well versed in the intricacies of the Mississippi River, cast doubt upon the notion that Chris could have lain undetected in the waters for 4 months. They would help in the construction of a theory. This was due to the river not having been frozen until January. Furthermore, the area beneath the 3rd Avenue Bridge had been scoured in the weeks following Chris's disappearance, further disrupting the original theory of an accidental drowning. However, there are some who still held on to the possibility that he may have floated down from another location before becoming ensnared in the tree's branches. In 2006, a turning point emerged when Jenkins' family met Police Chief Tim Dolan. The new evidence they presented compelled Chief Dolan to officially reopen the investigation, ultimately leading to the reclassification of Chris's death as a homicide. Chief Dolan, during later appearances on Breaking Homicide, would offer a perspective of a 50% chance of homicide, 30% chance of accidental death, and 20% chance of self-termination being what led to the end of Chris's life. However, as time would go on, informants would step forward, claiming to have witnessed an acquaintance hurl Chris off the Hennepin Avenue Bridge into the Mississippi River. Skepticism shrouds these accounts, as Chris had no broken bones or visible injuries which would have been garnered if someone had tossed him over the bridge's high safety railing, due to him needing to have encountered steel support beams on his way down. Yet this narrative would culminate in a disquieting revelation from the Hennepin County District Attorney's Office. They entertained the notions of pressing charges against a suspect for Chris's murder, but ultimately declined to do so. Speculation is abound that that suspect may have been Jaramy Alford, who was serving a life sentence for the murder of Douglas Miller, a patron who had been rumored to have frequented the Lone Tree Bar in 2002. Chris's case, like others, would eventually become entwined with the Smiley Face Killer's theory, which is a chilling hypothesis that posits the existence of a serial killer or a group of killers targeting young men along the banks of the Mississippi River and other bodies of water, and marking their killings with smiley face graffiti around the area. The puzzle deepens as we draw parallels between Chris Jenkins and Michael Knowles' cases. While Chris's body was found on February 27, 2003, Knowles' own form was found a month later on March 25th in a lake, a considerable distance from where he had last been seen. FBI investigators would at one point look at the cases as if they were tied. However, they have staunchly dismissed any connection between the deaths, along with the disappearance of Josh Guimond. However, another theory would emerge due to a tip randomly given to authorities in the year 2005, where authorities tracked down an incarcerated individual who had confessed that he and another man had confronted Chris on Hennepin Avenue Bridge, specifically the pedestrian walkway, and they had claimed that Chris had been drunk and defenseless, deeming him an easy target, and that his accomplice, infuriated by Chris's lack of valuables due to his costume leaving him bereft of pockets, meaning he had no wallet, had purportedly hurled Chris over the bridge, supposedly condemning him to the waters below. However, retired detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte cast a wide net and believe that Chris is a part of their theory, which asserts that he was one amongst 40 men, predominantly college-aged students, whose lives met their end in a watery grave across 11 states, despite the lack of smiley face graffiti anywhere near where his body was found. They posit that he was a victim of the Smiley Face Killers. However, both the FBI and Chris's family heavily doubt this. As time has gone by, the haunting saga of Chris's sudden death continues to evade resolution, as his family and investigators remain vigilant. His enigma remains. The tale of Chris Jenkins is a haunting conundrum that beckons many to question the official narrative given by authorities as suspects emerge, yet answers remain elusive. From the fantastical Smiley Face Killer's theory to the potential of a random act of violence or even kidnapping, a myriad of patterns emerge, tantalizing investigators and the family with the possibility of a sinister hand being at work. Yet skepticism lingers as the truth remains obscured. As the investigation continues, the family believes truth seekers must not relent. Cases like this must continue to be probed and questioned. It is in this pursuit of answers that we find journeys that are far from over and shadows that have yet to yield their secrets. If you remained with me until the end, I thank you, and I do hope you stay tuned and subscribe for more content.